Hi there. My name is Les Miller, and I'm a Hillsborough County Commissioner of District 3, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. You're going to enjoy the guest I have today. He's Les Miller from our County Board of County Commissioners, District 3. Les, how great to have you on the show with me.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I appreciate it.
Let's talk a little bit about the early Les Miller.
The early Les
The
Miller.
early Les Miller.
That was a long time ago.
Let's strip back. Sometimes it's easy for some of us, especially me, to remember the early days easier than it is to what happened yesterday. Let's talk about, where did you come from? Were you born here, raised here? Did you move here?
Born and raised in Tampa. Still live in the same neighborhood of which I grew up.
Really?
The high school I went to, the old Middleton High School. There's a new Middleton, we say it's New Middleton High School. The old Middleton High School, I live a half a block from that high school. Finished public schools here in Hillsborough County. Went off to a private university, now at that time was a college called Bethune-Cookman College, now Bethune-Cookman University, for a year. But had to leave because the scholarship I was on, they ran out of money. And I enrolled at the University of South Florida.
I had to leave because they asked me to.
Well, they didn't ask me to leave, but the money was cut. The scholarship was cut. My father retired. My mother was sick, and she wasn't able to work. So I was going to get drafted. I went in the Air Force. Spent 4 years in the Air Force and came back and enrolled at the University of South Florida and used enough GI Bill there to get my bachelor's and work on my master's at USF. So I've been in Tampa all my life except for the 4 years I served in the United States Air Force.
Well, we have that in common. I went in the Air Force too
Okay.
after they said don't come back to college. But I did go back and get it, I promise. I had a degree.
Exactly.
University of Dayton.
Yeah, that's what I did. And went to work after University of South Florida for a utility here. Stayed there for a while, and then to work for a not-for-profit through Urban League that was in existence here. I was their vice president and chief operating officer
Really?
for a while. Yeah, for there. When the good days were going on, and then of course, the first economy fell apart, and I had to leave there. Went to work for Time Customer Service for a while. Then started my own business, started my own consulting business. And in 1990,
And what was that in?
I was doing feasibility studies, doing some selling of paper products. My wife and I were running the business there for a while, doing
Okay.
that. Then I got elected to the legislature, and we had to turn that loose a little bit because the legislature was so demanding.
You know, people don't realize that, do they? It's
No,
supposed to be a
no.
part-time job, but it's not.
I don't know how much longer the state of Florida, with almost 20 million people and a state budget of $75 billion, can afford to have a part-time legislature anymore. It's really not part-time. It's part-time pay.
Right.
But the mere fact, people say, well, you're only there for a 60-day session. That's only the 60-day session that you're actually there from the first Tuesday in May to you end. But the committee meetings that you're there from, especially during a non-election year, you end session sometimes the first Friday in May. You start committee meetings in July. And you're there July, August, September, I mean, all the way up until the end of the next session. Most states our size have full-time legislatures. And I know the public does not want to hear, why would we want to have a full-time legislature? Because some of the bills you see created in the legislature, and if they go back to next year and correct, are passed in the waning hours of everyone rushing, trying to get their bill passed, and no one knows what's in there, what amendments have gone through. We need to start looking somewhere down the road of how we do that. But I served 14 years in the legislature, came out and ran for Congress, and I lost. Then went to work for my alma mater, University of South Florida. And in 2010, decided to run for county commission, and I won, and here
Don't
I
you
am.
have some city council in there somewhere?
I was on city council. That's the strangest part. In 1991, there was a special election for a city council member because the city councilman at that time was indicted. They had a special election. And 56 days later, they found him not guilty. So I had to resign. So I hold the shortest period of time of being on the Tampa City Council. And my wife and I are the only couple that ever served on city council.
Really?
She came along in 1995 and ran for city council after she retired from the school system. And she served for 16 years. Was the first black woman to ever serve as, first black person, period, to serve as chair of the Tampa City Council, and the first black to ever win a citywide election.
Not proud of her, are you?
I'm very proud of her. I'm very proud of what she's done, no doubt about it.
And then you went on to the commission.
Won the commission in 2010, was reelected in 2012 unopposed, and been there now. November will be 4 years. 4 years I've served on the commission.
You know, to me, I have to ask you this, and you can ask your wife this too. Why would you put yourself through this? A politician, they take nothing but guff. You have no private life.
True.
You can't go out to dinner. And if you're both politicians, that's even worse.
True, but it's one of the most rewarding things you could ever do. You know, my dad was 49 years old when I was born, and my mother, like I said, was sickly. But my dad was a union guy. He was always involved. And one of the things in watching him and listening to teachers when I grew up and community leaders, one of the best things you could do if you're not a rich person to give back to your community is service. And being an elected official is service. It's not about getting paid big bucks, because you're never going to get rich being an elected official. It's all about giving back and helping those that are less fortunate. And at my office, I tell my staff all the time, regardless if they live in District 3 or they live anywhere in Hillsborough County, when they call that office, they're in need, and we're here to help. And when you see something comes along and you've helped it, or created an ordinance or legislated, you create a bill that can alleviate a situation to help those who need it the most, that's the most rewarding thing you can get. You're never going to get many thank yous. You don't get them that often, but that's okay. That one you get every now and then goes a long way.
Let's go into District 3 a little bit.
Okay.
And I have some other general questions I want to
Sure.
ask you towards the end as time permits, but I know District 3 is, even though you represent the entire county, District 3 is near and close to your heart because
Exactly.
that's where you've been born, raised, and lived.
Right, exactly.
What about libraries?
Libraries are very important, and libraries have changed so much over the years. It used to be you walk in, they had the card catalog and things along those lines. Now everything is on computer. And in District 3, we had really 3 of the oldest libraries there was in the Hillsborough County system. One of the oldest one was, of course, the Seminole Heights Library. We have a brand new Seminole Heights Library. It's state of the art. You walk in there, everything is computerized, everything is, I mean, it's a beautiful facility, meeting room space, the whole works. And a lot of people don't have access to computers. They can go in those libraries and utilize computers. So the Seminole Heights Library, the old Seminole Heights Library, is a brand new one. One of the other libraries we had in my district is the Bob Saunders Library in Nebraska. We're expanding that library. We're tearing it down. We're building a brand new library for the people in that area because of the mere fact, again, people in that area don't have access to computers and the computer age that we have. And we want that digital divide to be closed. And what better than our library? So we're building a brand new library.
That digital divide is one that's a bit scary.
It is
Because
scary.
it really does separate society.
It really does. It really, really does. And if you're not computer literate today, and unfortunately, there's some out there, they're computer literate, but they don't have access to the computers. Our libraries filling that gap. And we just found out this last week that the Blythe Andrews Library, older library that's having some real structural problems, has been moved up to number 2.
Oh,
and
really?
Therefore, it's going to be rebuilt. And why is it? That's why libraries are so important, because the mere fact is that if our public does not read, if they don't have access to computers and they don't learn the computers, specifically in my district, the poorest district in the county, they're going to be lost. And a lot of kids leave school, they go home, there's no computer. They got to have access to those computers. And I think the libraries are the
They
best
can't
place
all
to have.
hang out at McDonald's.
That's exactly right, exactly right. So when they want to find out what's going on in a foreign country or how certain things were started, and they don't have access to those books or those computers, the libraries are the place they need to find them. And that's why I think libraries are so important. And we've been able in District 3 and in Hillsborough County, because Wild was one of the oldest libraries. It's on number 1 on the list.
Again, a poor area.
A poor area.
The core, Wyoming, is a poor area.
Exactly.
There's still Sundance and all the other places
Right.
around that are not, but
the
the core.
The library was old, and that's number 1 on the list, so we're going to be replacing that. And eventually we're going to have to replace our libraries, and if we ever get back in a good economy again, build some new libraries, because libraries play a significant role in the lives of the public today, and that's very important.
A lot of people don't realize how important libraries are to our everyday life. Many just don't know what the facilities offer.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
encourage you out there, if you've not been into one of the major libraries, go in and ask a librarian to share with you all the things that are out there, from finding out about your ancestry,
Exactly.
to space flight,
Exactly.
to meeting rooms.
There's so much in the library that opens the eyes, and especially of young people.
You know, you mentioned meeting rooms, but it's getting increasingly difficult for community groups to find a place to meet.
And libraries have those rooms.
And our Toastmasters Club, thank goodness, has a room to meet out there at the South Shore Regional Library. But if it wasn't for that, we'd be in deep
Exactly.
trouble.
And that's where a lot of community organizations meet. The Seminole Heights Libraries spaces utilized. When the Bob Saunders Library is completed, it will have meeting space, and that your library will have a connection with the Booker T. Washington Middle School. This middle school will be having, and students go over and utilize that library. And once we do the Blythe Andrews Library and the one in Wimauma, those room spaces will be available for civic organizations, fraternities, sororities, to all meet in those offices, those space rooms we have there. It's vitally important, vitally important.
I think it works hand in glove with the school system.
Well, it has to.
Teacher makes an assignment, she just assumes you have Wi-Fi at the house.
Some people don't even know what a Wi-Fi is. And that's unfortunate, but today,
My computer was down for a whole day, and I thought it was going to go into some kind of shock.
exactly. If you don't have a iPhone or a phone period or a smartphone or an iPad or some type of pad or computer these days, I live by it. My schedule is on it. My staff puts my schedule on it. All my contacts information on there. If I lose that thing, I'm lost.
And I made you turn it off for
You
this
made me turn
show.
it off.
I got to remember at the end, please, somebody help us remember to turn it back
When I
on.
go back-
I don't want you to get in the car and be lost.
When I turn it back on, I'll probably have 1,000 messages and phone messages, the whole works. But that's life these days.
You were talking earlier about accidents. Let's talk a little bit about that. We were talking about East Hillsborough Avenue and the recent accidents.
Hillsborough Avenue, between Nebraska, if you're talking about East Hill, Nebraska to the west, and 50th Street to the east, has become a real dangerous situation. I grew up in that area, and I remember Hillsborough Avenue back then being small businesses, not many residential places along it, but small businesses. The times have changed since that time. And the only crossing area you have in that area, you have it lighted at Nebraska, then you go probably almost a 3/4 of a mile, then the 15th Street, then 22nd Street, 34th, 40th, and after 40th is 50th Street. And we put apartment complexes all along there. Unfortunately, between 22nd Street and 34th Street, they put an apartment complex there, and 2 students have lost their lives crossing that street going to Middleton High School.
So you're not going to walk that far around.
No, not at all, not at all. And you have adults crossing that area because the strip mall is over there. There are some grocery stores and small shops. And we've got to do something about that. Myself, Representative Betty Reed, State Representative Betty Reed.
I love her. She is just an absolute
she's
sweetheart. I'm so sad to see her going.
She's leaving. She's term limited. And City Councilman Frank Reddick, we met with the Florida Department of Transportation because even though that road sits in the city limits and it's in Hillsborough County, it's a state road. And we've talked about what can we do, specifically between 22nd and 34th Street, to make it easier for those students and adults, period, to walk across or get across those streets. We've talked about an overpass of people walking over, but that is not ADA compliant, so we can't change that.
That is a problem.
So Department of Transportation have said, well, it's going to take us to 2016 to get something done. We said, wait a minute, that's a long time, that's 2 years away. One of the issues they have is that we're going to put a crosswalk there where someone will push the button and we have lights that'll change those lights. We got to have a right-of-way to build that. And that's not owned by the county, it's not owned by the city, it's not even owned by the state, it's individuals that own those right-of-ways.
Really?
So we got to talk about monies and budgets, specifically state budgets, to buy that right-of-way, to put those crosswalks there. There's been a study to look at Hillsborough Avenue. There's going to be some changes to Hillsborough Avenue, just like we've had some changes to Fletcher Avenue. Fletcher Avenue we made some drastic changes along there because it used to be a very dangerous way, thoroughfare. Now we're making some changes there. So we're going to have to make those changes on Hillsborough, but along those lines, we're going to have to work with the Department of Transportation, Florida Department of Transportation, because it is a state road. But I think that eventually, working with the legislature, our elected officials, and Betty Reese being term limited out, she's leaving, but Edna Rain looks like he's going to be the new state representative there, along with city and county officials. We can get some things working along there, because we can't afford to lose another life.
Oh, no.
Because of the mere fact students are getting up in the dark, walking to school, and crossing that area, and someone does not see them. Even though the school district is now going to have a bus to pick those students up, that's the students. What about the adults walking across? I've even seen people in wheelchairs.
And what about the kid that doesn't get up in time and still is in a hurry?
Exactly.
Doesn't look while he runs across. I mean, it happens. And if you say, well, you should have got up, think back.
Yeah.
It didn't happen with you either.
So we're working hard to try to make some changes along Hillsborough and other thoroughfares in that district in Hillsborough County, so people will be safe crossing streets. Yeah.
Safety is important.
Exactly.
But transportation is equally important. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that we need to upgrade our transportation structure in this county.
Exactly.
The whole county.
Exactly.
Not just Tampa, not just one more bus added to this system. What's your feelings on transportation? Where do you stand?
Well, it's an important issue, and I know we've got to make some changes. But we got to put together a plan that everyone in this county, not only the city limits of Tampa, but everyone, if we're going to ask them to ante up and increase their taxes, will benefit from that. We did this in 2010, but it wasn't well put together. It wasn't not everyone in the county was talked to. Was running in 2010, and in my district, when I went out into the unincorporated Hillsborough County, people were saying, well, what am I going to get for increased taxes? And they were right. They never were told what was going to happen there. Now we need to talk about, we cannot strictly build our way out of this system with roads. Roads are expensive. And you take a level D road, by the time you finish working on that road and repaving it, redoing it, guess what the level of service is? D. We've got to look at how do we get more buses in our system? How we get a connector. We're going to talk about a train system in the city of Tampa. How do we get buses connecting with that system? Where do we put our hubs? Those people in unincorporated Hillsborough County, they need to know what type of services they're going to have. Are they going to get better roads? Are they going to get more bus service out in unincorporated Hillsborough County? We've got to put that kind of plan together. And Mike Merrill and the policy committee, the leadership policy committee that we've been working on, which consists of all 7 county commissioners, the mayors of the city of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and the chair of Heartline, we've been sitting down with staff and putting this together. And the plan has come forth, a proposal has come forth as to what we will be able to do with roads, with buses, with a rail system, if we get to that rail system, what everyone will get out of this entire process. And I think it's the right start, and we're going to have to bite the bullet. I know there's some people out there saying, we don't need to raise taxes, live within your own means. Well, what's your own means? What do you mean by your own means? Budgets have been cut and led in government like mad. When I first came into this on the county commission, we were laying people off. The economy is starting to turn around, but we'll never see it the way it was before. And we'll never have those type of dollars to spend the way we spent them before. When I left the legislature in 2006, the budget was $73 billion. You know why? Because we had 4 hurricanes. We had 4 hurricanes.
Yeah.
We don't have hurricanes, those budgets go down. So we've got to bite the bullet. If we want a better transportation system, if we want to have connectors where buses go into our rail system, we have that, where people in unincorporated Hillsborough County can catch a bus, come into the city limits, or go anywhere they need to go, have better roads where you don't have 2-lane roads and someone's trying to get from point A to point B that takes an entire hour. We have better road systems. Some of our roads in Hillsborough County, it's like riding on the back of an alligator. When we can straighten those roads out, someone's going to have to pay for that. So we've got to have a better system. We've got to have a better transportation system. The plan that we have now is one I think that is one of the best ones we could have. And our staffs and that policy committee will be meeting with people throughout this county to lay out their plan, talk to them about what they will get, what that 1-cent sales tax will bring to the table.
I'd love to have somebody from that committee on this program.
Mike Merrill, our county administrator, will be one of the ones that you did bring on
to
here.
come out here and sit down with me as we're doing now and talk about it. I personally am a big proponent of rail.
Right.
I've ridden the rail in Atlanta. You know, we can be a small town that just has a few tourists coming in and out, or we can be a modern town, one that moves forward. But I don't think we can be both if we don't have decent rail.
And let me tell you what it will do. I've seen the rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've seen the rail system in Phoenix. I've seen the rail system in North Virginia. And sales tax is an aggressive tax. Let's admit the fact that it is. But when you're talking about having a rail system, when you talk about increasing a bus line system, when you talk about having connectors along those things, the most important thing to me about that is going to bring jobs. It's going to bring jobs because if you look at that rail system in any of those cities, economic development came along, and in the areas that we would have this system, which we're looking at right now, which will go through some of the most needy parts of this county, it will bring jobs to the people that live there. So they will have jobs to work near the system. If they live a ways from it, they can connect with the bus, get to their jobs, and even utilize the rail system. So it's vitally important because it's economic development. When you start talking about that, whether it's in the city of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, or unincorporated county, it's economic development and it's having a better system for an area that's been deprived for a long time. So I am all for this plan. I've read it. I see what it's about. I've talked to Mike Merrill. I've talked to the other commissioners when we can talk, not out of the sunshine, and how we can make sure that the 1 cent sales tax that we're asking people to pay will go to benefit everyone in this particular county. One of the things you got to realize too, we talk about Hillsborough County being 1.2 million people. Maybe that's a census. We're probably closer to 1.5 million. But the economy is starting to turn around. And when Florida had its boom, and we had more people moving to Florida, 25% of them were moving to the Tampa Bay area. 25%. So you can bet your bottom dollar that Hillsborough County is getting a lot of them. We went from 600,000 in 1980s to 1.2 million on the books right now. And we're estimating probably by 2025, 2030, we'll be at about 1.61. We're probably closer to 2 million. If this county continues to grow, we can't continue to have the type of system we have now because we'll never get around. So we've got to do something.
I don't think you can put enough buses on the road to make it.
No, we can't. No, we can't.
It can't be the only, better solution, better buses, better Wi-Fi on the buses, those sort of things. But it can't be done completely. I promised you that I would give you 1 to 2 minutes to talk directly to the people that elected you, and even those who didn't, and talk to them directly. So would you like to take that minute now?
I'll do that. I'll do that. I guess I'll look into that camera.
Right, there you go.
Well, to the people of District 3 and the people of Hillsborough County, first of all, thank you for allowing me to serve on the county commission. It's been a privilege. You allowed me to serve 14 years in the Florida legislature and 56 days on the city council. But Hillsborough County Commission is an important position, and I take it very, very seriously. This county I love. I was born and raised here, and my family's here. I have grandchildren here, and just like you have families here, I want to make sure that the work that I do benefits everyone in this county. So that's why me and my staff are here, whether you live in District 3 or not in District 3. If there are issues that come about that you face, you feel you want to talk to me, please feel free to call my office. I don't care where you live in Hillsborough County, please do. My door is open and we're here for you. This county is a place that I want to make everyone be able to live, work, and play and learn and enjoy life in this county and not have a separatism of income or race, whatever the case may be, because this county is a multicultural county and we must all work together. So I appreciate you allowing me to serve you. I hope that I can continue to serve you until my term is up. But I thank you so very much for that. And please, please, please feel free to give me a call anytime and let me work with you to try to make this county the best place for all of us to live, work, and play.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very nicely said, sir. Now, we've only got a minute or so here, but would you quickly go over the primary system and this thing about people who do write-ins and that? Because I think it's really important, but we don't have much time.
A lot of people think the primaries are not important. A lot of times that's the elections that determines who will serve you.
Exactly.
And what has happened is that a lot of people close the primaries a closed primary having a write-in candidate. Hopefully the legislature would change that, because when you do that, if it's a Democratic primary, no one else can vote in those primaries with Democrats. Hopefully the legislature would change that, so if you have a primary where you only have Democrats or Republicans running, everyone can vote, because at that primary, that person elected, because they won't have a general election. It will happen so many times. But when you have that write-in candidate, it locks people out. It's a Republican primary, nobody else can vote with Republicans. If a Democratic primary, nobody else can vote with Democrats. But I tell people, get educated. Understand that in many cases, that primary election determines who will be your representative, whether it's school board, county commission, city, state, whatever.
So what would be the solution?
The solution would be...
What should we be telling our state legislators to do?
Change the laws that allow a write-in candidate to close the elections. Change that law. Don't allow that to happen, because if you and I are running in a primary, we both Democrats or Republicans, and John Q. Public comes in and says, I want to close that and have a write-in candidate because I don't want anyone else to vote on it, that's what happens, and it locks that person out of a different party.
I really like what I understand Michigan has, where independents can vote in either primary. They can only vote, obviously, once.
One time.
One either way. But that prevents, and it seems to be silly to me, in order to get into a primary and win a primary, you've got to go real hard to the right or left.
Yeah.
And then when the general election comes, they try to swing back, and it doesn't work.
Well, one of the most important things is to tell the listeners, remember, study these elections, because in many, many cases, that primary election determines who will represent you, because there is no general election in November.
All right, one last question. If you had a magic wand, what do you think is the most important thing that you'd solve here in Hillsborough County?
There's so many things.
I gotta have one.
So many things. But one of the things I'm really worried about is our infrastructure. It is getting old. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about our water lines and things on those lines. It's getting old. I'm talking across the entire county. And if we don't do something about it soon, we're gonna have some major, major problems. Corrosion of pipes, flooding, people without water, possible sinkholes and things on those lines. If I had the magic wand and I had the money, I would start the process, and I may never see it all within my lifetime, of upgrading our infrastructure system throughout this county. Can I do two?
All right.
The second one
Quickly.
will be teaching our young kids that violence is not the way of life.
I so agree with that.
Violence is not the way of life.
I watched the recent riots, and I'm thinking to myself, now, how does it help your community to go tear up a store? It just doesn't. There's frustration, I know, in a lot of instances.
If I could have the magic wand and talk to every child out there, regardless of race, creed, or color, and let them know that sitting down across the table and talking to a person that might be someone that don't agree with you and work those things out instead of pulling out a gun and shooting them, I would do that.
No, I'm not a big in favor of a lot of these gun laws either, although I've had a gun since I was 4 years old, so I'm not an anti-gun person, so don't jump on me for it. I just think it needs to be changed a bit. Commissioner Miller, I have just enjoyed your being on with me today. I told you it would be good. I told you he'd be a really good guest, and you have been.
Thank you very much, sir.
I trust you'll come back one of these days.
Anytime.
I want you to thank your staff for working with our people to be able to get you here.
I will do that.
And don't forget, when the show's over, turn your phone back on.
I'll do that. I have all the messages coming in. Good talking to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
Okay,
I really appreciate it. I'm Bill Hodges. Remember, you're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often, because you are, you know. And we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, Commissioner Miller, thanks for being with us.
I enjoyed it.